You never expect your peaceful life to suddenly feel like a nightmare until someone starts watching you from the shadows. It started innocently enough. I had just moved into a new apartment, a cozy ground floor unit in a quiet neighborhood. The large windows were one of the reasons I picked the place. They let in so much light during the day. I loved sitting by them with my morning coffee, watching the world go by. But then, at night, it felt different. My street was always quiet after dark, with very few people walking by. So one night when I was finishing some work and noticed movement outside the window, it startled me. I brushed it off, assuming it was just a neighbor or someone walking their dog. But something about the movement felt wrong, like someone was lurking. A couple of nights later, I was in the kitchen making dinner when I felt it again. The unmistakable sensation of being watched. My eyes flicked to the window, and that's when I saw him. A man standing just beyond the glass, half hidden in the shadows. He didn't move. He was just staring at me. My heart pounded in my chest. I told myself he was just passing by, that maybe I was being paranoid. But he wasn't moving, and his eyes seemed locked on me. I quickly closed the blinds and tried to shake the image from my head. Still, that night, I couldn't sleep. The fear was there, gnawing at me. The next night it happened again. This time he was standing closer. His outline was clearer. I shut the blinds faster and locked every door and window in my apartment, my hands shaking. I was too afraid to even look out the window again. The following day, I called a friend to stay over, hoping having someone there would make me feel safer. But when my friend arrived, the man didn't show up. For a brief moment, I thought maybe it was over. But it wasn't. One night, while sitting on my couch, I heard a soft tapping on the window. I froze. The tapping grew louder, insistent. I gathered the courage to peek out from behind the blinds. And there he was. His face pressed right against the glass, his eyes wild, a twisted grin on his face. He was so close I could see the fog of his breath against the window. I screamed and backed away, frantically calling 911. By the time the police arrived, the man was gone, like he had vanished into thin air. They searched the area but found nothing. No footprints, no signs of forced entry, just the cold silence of the night. I moved out the next day. To this day, I don't know who he was or why he watched me. But even now, sometimes, when I pass by a window at night, I feel the hairs on the back of my neck stand up, and I wonder, is he still watching? Before we dive into our next chilling tale, if you're enjoying these spine-tingling stories, don't forget to give this video a thumbs up. Share your thoughts or let us know which story scared you the most in the comments below. If you know someone who loves a good scare, make sure to share this video with them. And if you want to keep up with more terrifying tales, hit that subscribe button and ring the bell for notifications. Your support means the world and helps us bring you more content like this. Now, let's move on to our next story. I never thought the feeling of being followed could turn my life upside down. But what started as a walk home turned into a nightmare I can't escape. I used to take the same route home from work every single day. It was routine, a 10-minute walk from the bus stop to my apartment, past quiet streets lined with trees. Nothing ever seemed out of the ordinary. Until one day, when I stepped off the bus and saw a man across the street, just staring at me. At first, I thought nothing of it. It's a busy area. Maybe he was just waiting for someone. But the next day, there he was again. The same spot, the same unsettling stare. He didn't look away, even when I walked past. By the third day, I started to feel uneasy. It was the exact same routine. He would stand across the street, watching me as I made my way home. I never saw him before, and now he was always there. Something about his eyes, they never left me. Then one night, I got off the bus a little later than usual. The street was quieter and the air felt colder. I told myself I was being paranoid, but as I walked, I heard footsteps. At first, they were distant. Then they matched my pace, each step in sync with mine. I quickened my stride. The footsteps followed. I was too scared to turn around, but I knew it was him. My heart raced as I ducked into a small convenience store, hoping to lose him. I stayed there for what felt like hours, browsing aimlessly, pretending to shop. When I finally left, I glanced back, and there he was, standing at the end of the street, waiting for me. I started seeing him everywhere, on the bus, in the grocery store, even outside my apartment building. He never approached me, never said a word, but he was always there, watching. I felt trapped. One evening, I was walking home when I felt his presence again. This time, I didn't run. I turned around and there he was, just a few feet behind me, his eyes locked on mine. He smiled. That was the first time I had seen him smile. I screamed for help, and he bolted into the shadows. I reported him to the police, but they couldn't find anything. He disappeared just like that. I moved to a different city soon after, hoping to leave the terror behind. But even now, whenever I hear footsteps behind me, I wonder, is he still following me? I had always felt safe in my apartment. It was on the second floor of a quiet building, with neighbors I knew well. It wasn't a place where strange things happened. I knew the sounds of my home, the creak of the floorboards, the hum of the refrigerator. But one night after a late shift at work, something felt off. I came home to find my front door slightly ajar. At first, I thought maybe I hadn't pulled it shut properly. I pushed it open, my heart already starting to race. But everything inside looked perfectly normal. Nothing was missing, no signs of anyone having broken in. I even checked the windows, but they were still locked. I brushed it off as nothing, convinced it was my imagination. But then, little things began to change. It started with small details I couldn't shake. One night I came home and noticed the kitchen light was on. I was sure I had turned it off before I left. The next day, it was the TV remote. I always left it on the coffee table, but this time, it was across the room, sitting on the kitchen counter. Then, my shoes. I always left them by the door, side by side. But I started finding them scattered, one facing the door, the other pointed in the opposite direction. At first, I thought I was just being careless, maybe tired from work. But the more it happened, the more I started to feel that something wasn't right. One night, things escalated. I was lying in bed, about to drift off to sleep, when I heard it. Footsteps. They were faint at first, like someone trying to move quietly. I convinced myself it was just the neighbors upstairs, but the sound didn't stop. The footsteps were inside my apartment, and they were getting closer. I lay there, my heart racing, straining to listen. The footsteps stopped, and then I heard something else. Breathing. Soft, deliberate breathing coming from the hallway outside my bedroom. I froze, my mind racing. I didn't dare move. I slowly got out of bed, trying not to make a sound. My hands were shaking as I reached for my phone. I stepped into the hallway, the air thick with fear. I couldn't see anyone, but I could feel it. Someone was there. My eyes scanned the room, searching for movement, when suddenly, from the corner of the living room, I heard it. A low, soft chuckle. It wasn't loud, but it was enough to send chills down my spine. I froze. For a moment, I thought I was imagining it, but then I heard it again, this time clearer. Someone was in the apartment. Someone was watching me. Panic set in. I bolted back to my bedroom, locked the door, and called the police. I told them someone had broken into my apartment, that I could hear him. The operator tried to keep me calm, but I was shaking uncontrollably. Minutes felt like hours until I finally heard the sound of sirens outside. The police searched every inch of my apartment, but they found nothing. No sign of forced entry, no sign of anyone at all. They told me it was probably just my imagination, maybe a prank. But I knew what I had heard. I knew I wasn't alone that night. The next morning, I woke up to a sinking feeling. I went into the kitchen, and there it was, a note lying on the counter. It hadn't been there the night before. The handwriting was shaky, uneven, and the message was chilling. I like watching you sleep. I called the police again. They came back, searched everything, and checked for fingerprints, but nothing came up. No forced entry, no evidence, nothing. It was like he had never been there. They reassured me that it was probably just a one-time scare, maybe someone who had a key, but the note was so personal, so direct. That night, I tried to sleep, but every little noise made my heart pound. Every creak, every gust of wind against the windows. I couldn't shake the feeling that someone was still out there, watching. A week passed, and I started to think maybe it was over. But then one night I woke up to something different. My bedroom door was open. I always kept it closed. And there, in the darkness, I could just make out a figure standing in the doorway, watching me. I blinked, and he was gone. I told myself it was a dream, a trick of the mind, but I never saw him leave. And now, I keep the lights on when I sleep, because I know whoever he was, he's not gone. He's waiting for the moment I let my guard down.